Dangerous and moves, paint it yellow. Okay, so let's pay attention, because wicked good things happen when you pay attention. So I'm in my bunk. I'm on a big sailboat. I'm in the around the world sailboat race. And we're going downwind. And the boat rolls when you're going downwind. Now, 2 months ago, we left England, 15 boats on the around the world race, and we sailed down the Atlantics all the way to Cape Town, South Africa. 3 weeks in Cape Town. We left Cape Town 4 days ago. And now we're plunging into the Southern Ocean. And it's cold. And the wind is blowing. And we're rolling. Roll to starboard. Roll to port. And we keep rolling to port. We keep rolling to port, and bang! The boat lays right down on its side. This is not the mast. This is the mast. I get rolled out of my boat, out of my bunk. I end up on the root of the mast where it comes in the boat. And it's going like this. And I go, this is not good. And who knows, 30 seconds? It was 3.5 lifetimes waiting to see what was going to happen. And then bang, and the boat stands up, and we take off, and we're going straight again. And so I can feel it in the boat. And then, well, at least the helmsman is still alive, because someone's steering the boat. And we all run up on deck, and it's not raining. It's like being in a waterfall. And the wind is not just blowing, it's howling. Well, the spinnaker that we were sailing with is in the water. We pull it back out and get it below. And then Billy has been wiped down the deck, and he's fetched up in the lower rigging. And we got to be gentle with him because it looks like he's broken a couple of ribs. And Thirsty has got a compress on his head because a camera came across the boat and whacked him. And we call this, hello, boys, welcome to the Southern Ocean. The waves are not going to just be big, they're going to be mountains, and they will eat you. And oh, don't hit the icebergs. So it was an adventure. Think climbing Mount Everest. It was a big adventure. And I had sought it out, and it was a great time. And what I want to do is invite you to the process of making the decision to get involved. I mean, it was intense. 2 people died on the first race. So I'd like to go through that process, and in the hopes that in sharing my story as to how I made that decision, it's beneficial to you in your lives going forward. So let's back up. As Jamie said, I was a professional ski patrolman during my 20s. And that had intensity to it. I mean, you were the first responder. You got your toboggan and ski down the hill, and the you're going to deal with someone who just broke her leg 2 minutes ago, whatever, and you were game on. You had to be there. You had to be present. The other thing we did in that job is we had charges of dynamite we'd make up, and after the storms and the high winds on the ridges, we'd walk the ridges and throw the dynamite into the avalanche chutes and blow them down. That was kind of fun. But I think it was qualifying at that point for kind of being an intensity junkie. So at the end of 7 years, that began to wane. And I was paying attention to what I want to do. I mean, I had my youth. I was thinking about the next thing, and I decided, let's go sailing. So I moved to Seattle, Washington, and I got involved with sailboat racing, specifically because whatever you want to do in life, go where people compete, because that's where the learning curve is really steep. And I went there, and I met a man, and I learned that he had done the Around the World race 3 years earlier, and he was a sailmaker. And I knew that he had delivered the sails, the white ones that push the boat through the water, to a boat in Finland that was being built for the Around the World race coming up in another year. So I thought, now there's the pieces. I was paying attention. There's the pieces. But I thought, wait a minute, this is big time. Maybe this is a bigger apple than I want to chew on. So I thought, what am I going to do to make my own personal decision, my own binding commitment? And I thought, okay, we'll write down every Sunday night for the next 5 weeks what it is. Are we going to do it or not? Well, I did that. And after 3 times, I took my buddy out to lunch. And I said, if I worked evenings and weekends, could you teach me what I need to know to be the sail repair person on that boat going in the around the world race. And he said, chuckled, he said, yeah, we could do that. And I said, well, if you write the letter and I get on the boat, I will go the distance and make you proud. And we shook hands. Now, I see 4 or 5 steps in that process, okay? First, I was paying attention. And I saw, him and the boat and the timing and whatnot. I could see the pattern I could put together by putting it together. But the other thing that I needed to pay attention to was what? Me. Where was my integrity? Where was my commitment? Because I think that when, integrity is when you're whole and undivided. So I was able to bring myself to a point of integrity. And when you're in your integrity, you can shift to your willpower, which is basically, I'm going to do what I say I'm going to do. That's where your willpower is. That's where you're free. Willpower is a very liberating thing, because once you've cast it, you're in. And so I was able to go to, and then the next thing that I needed to do was to add time. Because what gets done in life if you don't get out the calendar? It has to have time. So those are the steps that I did. And, and they turned out to get me on the boat in the Around the World race. And Keith wrote the letter, and I got it back, and it was a British boat. And I still remember tearing open the envelope and looking at a piece of paper written on a typewriter. And it said, reservations have been made for you aboard King's Legend in the Around the World race. How terribly British. But, but then, that was in February. I had to be in England to get going in July. And I had to apply time, didn't I? Okay, I got to learn a trade. I had to use that. So that's the passage that I think is interesting as to how I made the decision. I paid attention. I paid attention to me to find my integrity. I transferred it to my willpower, where I could be liberated and just focused and know that if it happened, I wasn't going to look back. And then I got out the calendar and I had time. And that's, so let's crank the clock forward a little bit more. I hit my 40s, and Jamin read you some of the things I've done, marathons and kids and whatnot and motorcycles, and I have always embraced a lot of adventure. But I got into my 60s and I had an agitation. And I kind of had to look at myself, and what I finally figured out what was annoying me about me, I had started to learn karate in my 30s. And then I came along in my 30s, and I got to my 40s and kids and whatnot, and I hadn't done it. I hadn't gone to my black belt. I got all the way to my brown. And once again, I applied my little formula. I decided what my agitation was. I looked inside me, and I found my integrity, which was to conclude it. And I made my willpower. I went to the dojo, and I signed up, and it took me 3 years. In my 60s, I went back to earn my black belt. And thank you. Thank you. It's a little different. It's a little different that now in the, doing karate in a 67-year-old body than it was in a 30-year-old body. So let's crank forward just a little bit more. And I want to talk to you about my latest endeavor. My second son went to college. And after a year, the shoe didn't fit. Now, anybody in here ever find that the classroom wasn't quite your venue? But Mickey was bright and intelligent. He wasn't going to college a year later, and we had saved money, so we had money, but a kid that wasn't in college. And it reflected back on my own education, which was predominantly take a course and do a paper, and then at the end of the term do another paper. So I got an idea, and I went to Mickey and I said, tell you what, if you write me a 5-page paper, when I receive it, I'll put $1,000 into your bank account. So I had the money, but instead of paying tuition, I was giving it straight to Mickey. And then about 3 papers later, Mickey comes to me and says, hey, Dad, learning to write these papers is a little easier now. Well, gee, Was that education? Putting your thoughts down, on a subject matter? So that's Mickey's Papers. And the good news is it reflects, again, the formula. Because you can't write a paper if you don't look around and pay attention to what's around. You can't write it if you don't pay attention to yourself and find your own integrity. Have your willpower that says, I'm going to do this and stick with it. And have a calendar. There's a little block on the website of mickeys.papers.com where you have to fill in your due date. So that's time. So that's the passage that I'm on now. And I hope that that formula is really beneficial for all of you. I'd add a couple of things. In my years of sailing, often I was in charge of not just boat speed, not just making the boat go fast, but to make the boat go fast, the people had to be fast. And I coined a phrase, happy people sail fast. Right? When you find your gladness, when it's in here, when you're happy, you're yippee-skippy, you're cooking, that's when you're bulletproof. That's when your joy is present. And that's so powerful in life. So find your happiness. The next thing I'd like to share with you is that if you want to know how to get what you want in this world, you give it. Now chew on that one, and while you're chewing, pay attention.